The Grateful Dead are among the most unlikely stars in the history of rock and roll. They created a culture and became one of the most famous bands in the world on their own terms. They toured relentlessly, made things up as they went, and didn't care about making mistakes. They never cared about being famous, and would probably even hate me for calling them stars in this monologue. In this trippy episode of Prisoners of Rock and Roll, we're taking a look at the Grateful Dead. The music, the drugs, the bootlegs, the Deadheads, their impact on music, their legacy, and what it's like seeing them in concert. So turn on, tune in, and drop out. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Prisoners of Rock and Roll, episode number 44. My name is Bruce Kramer, and I'm here at the mic tonight with my co-host, my partner in crime, the dancing bear himself, Ryan McCusker.
Are you rocking
May
out
the
there?
four winds blow you safely home.
The dancing bear. The dancing bear. Yeah, that sums me up pretty well. You know,
Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia, and we are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. We are a two-man operation today.
That's all right. We're going to talk about the Dead.
Yeah.
I like to think that I know a lot about the history of it, so I think maybe we could put a good show on.
Yeah, we had some scheduling conflicts. Doug couldn't be with us tonight, and in interest of skipping another 2 weeks, we did the whole episode the last episode, and we talked all about how we were going to stick to a schedule and everything. So we figured just to do it. The quality may sound a little different. We're doing this remotely for the first time, but whatever we lack in the awesome audio quality, we will make up for it with all of our insight and entertainment and all of the great stuff that brings you to listen to us every 2 weeks.
I'm just glad that I have the gift of gab.
Man.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let me get right off the bat, Bruce. What do you think of when you first hear the name The Grateful Dead?
The concerts, the live concerts.
Yes. I know you're a fan. You like them, but me, I'm a cult following dude for the Grateful Dead. I got a huge Grateful Dead tattoo on my leg. It's a very big deal to me. It's a very I don't know, I would have to say it's very important to me. Like, I won't miss the show for anything.
Yeah, so you are, and you're way more of a diehard than I am. I'm kind of more of a casual fan. But I know this has been on the list for a while, and when you brought this up, I was like, man, this has got to be to you the way like the Springsteen episode was to me. I know how much they mean to you.
They do, but it's like, I've been seeing forms of the Grateful Dead probably since 99, 2000. I didn't get to see Jerry. I was too young. I missed it by about a year to seeing them. But I totally feel like I missed something. And, and I have to give it up to what is out there now, like the Dead and Company. They're keeping it alive. It's not the Grateful Dead. It's not. John Mayer sounds nothing like Jerry Garcia, but the music is alive. It's out there. We still get to go to the shows, the experience. I took my friend for the first time. I've been friends with him my whole 45 years of life, and I took him, and I had to play by play. I was giving him what's the song meanings and look what he says here and everything like that. And he said he really enjoyed. He knows nothing about the Grateful Dead at all, and he said he enjoyed the whole experience of it. And I think that's what the Grateful Dead is about, is experience. Like the experience of going to the concert, like you said. It's very it's a gathering. Jokingly, it's a cult. You know, I always say I like somebody a little bit better when I find out they like the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a lot of things about the Dead that people don't really notice. I think the casual fan, like the band, started as a cover band. They were called the
Yeah.
Warlocks. They formed this band in like 95. I'm sorry, 90, like 64, 65. So the Grateful Dead was doing their thing when the Beatles came out. You know, here was the Beatles, everybody trying to be the Beatles. And here's this band with a big bluegrass feel. And what they wanted to do was make a blues electric band. Like they wanted to make a blues band electrified, which there wasn't a lot of that going on. Chicago is happening, but for a bunch of white guys to come together and play blues, you know, it's pretty different for the times in the 60s. You know, they got caught up in the psychedelic era, you know, but in the beginning they were a blues band.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, you said stuff that's not well known to the casual fan, and I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot of like. There's not a band you're into like casually. You know, Touch of Grey, you know, Sugar Magnolia, that like Truckin, maybe Casey Jones. You know, there's like 4 or 5 songs you'll hear on the radio, but other than that, man, like if you're, you really got to be really into them, and I'm kind of like a little. I'm not as much as I'm nowhere near as into them as you guys are, as you and Doug are. I am wearing a dead shirt tonight that I barely fit into anymore. But and I've read a couple books about. I don't. The whole thing about them just really fascinates me. I'm fascinated by how diverse they are as musicians, how they ran their business, just how, like I said it in the monologue, man, like they did everything without a plan. You know, like even like how
they were the most unorganized band that you could fucking think of. Nobody wanted to be the leader. Like, so it was like a free fall of management and touring. And you know, who was the boss? Some days they said Bob was the boss. Some days the roadie Ramrod was in charge. And he said what was really funny. He's like, you know what happened? He's like, the carburetor went right then.
Yes.
The carburetor.
Yes,
was
I
the
really
boss.
like that. It was,
you know,
that was in the A Long Strange Trip. The documentary series. I watched most of it. And it was like a guy that was like their manager was saying that the situation became the boss, and he used the car. And I like that. I just thought that was a cool way to explain it.
Yeah, I from the experiences that I've seen through the documentaries and the things that I've read and everything like that, they really were over their head. Like, here's like a cultural iconish thing. And they put, you know, these guys on a pedestal and made them like superstars in a way. Like, you know, like a whole cult family follows these guys around.
It really was like they really just wanted to make music, and they didn't give a shit about everything else.
Like we said they were called the Warlocks, right? But you know, Jerry was always a main part of the band. But in the beginning, their frontman lead singer was a guy named Pigpen. And Pigpen was a blues man, white guy, played harmonica. He was a front man. He'd jump up and sing like he was a preacher. He was very, very animated on stage. Maybe we can hear a little bit of it. Hard to Handle's on there. He does a great little intro.
Yeah, man, sure. Here you go. Here's a little Hard to Handle. I love the stuff that Pigpen sings on. I agree, man. It's definitely a
Oh,
lot more
dude.
bluesy.
Yeah, it was totally a different band. Um, as the band became more alert of what the 60s were turning into, meaning, dropping acid and, doing the acid tests. And they were a big part of the acid test. They would set up and they would play for these kids taking acid in a safe place. It was never done again after the six. Like, you can't, no way, have like a drop
Right.
in
Well,
now.
that was
No
like, I mean,
fucking way.
LSD was legal
Yeah.
still, right? So
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
CIA
So
thing,
maybe
bro.
it's
It was
let's
the
put a little color
government.
to that. Well, first of all, the Warlock. I thought the Warlocks thing was interesting. So they were the Warlocks, and then at some point, man, they decided they're going to be like a serious band. Somebody else goes, "Hey, man, there's another band named the Warlocks. You got to change your name." And so they
Yeah.
became the Grateful Dead, and they said they really like Jerry just pulled out a dictionary and just opened it and put his finger,
Did you see that?
and
Yeah, it was a dictionary of like
yeah,
higher thinking or something. And what did he do? He said he opened the book, and the first thing it said
yeah,
was
and you're like,
Grateful
that's
Dead.
it.
And what it means, Grateful Dead means almost karma from your good deeds. And there's like the death of skeletons basically here with you, guiding you through
Yeah.
good karma. And that's what the
Thank
Grateful
God they
Dead
didn't
is.
open it and land on Hootie and the Blowfish.
No, because that's a you know I think it was magical how they
Yeah.
came up with the name the Grateful Dead. It was very, very
But then
mystical,
the band
bro.
that was the original, the other Warlocks, they changed their name to the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, who
Right.
were
It's
they?
just isn't
Yeah,
it
isn't
funny
that
that they're
crazy?
like two bands named the Warlocks, both
Maybe I should have called my
right.
band the Warlocks, and then we would have
Right.
came
We should be like
something
the
else.
Warlocks of rock and roll. But the
Yeah,
acid
there you
test,
go.
yeah, man. So it was like they had just a house in California, and LSD was legal, and the government was behind it, and these people would go, and it was Ken Kesey. They would allow people to show up, and they would do
Yeah,
they'd have like the big punch bowl with the LSD in it, and the Dead were kind of like the house band at this thing, and these people would go and get high as all hell, and the Dead would kind of play whenever they want to. There was no, it wasn't like you're doing a set at 8, you're doing a set at 9. It was kind of like whenever you feel like you're tripping, and I guess that's where they really started to become associated with the drug scene.
yeah. Do you always have that joke? What did the Deadhead say when he ran out of drugs? This band sucks.
You know what, man? I have that in my notes. I wrote, if you're not a big fan, their fans are fucking annoying because they.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. I mean, I'm not as righteous as some of these Grateful Dead guys are because I didn't see Jerry. I was too young. I'm sorry. My mom would have let me go see the
Right.
Grateful Dead, at 17 years old. I grew up in South Philadelphia near the stadiums. And when the Grateful Dead came to town, the culture came to town. So you have FDR Park where the whole Deadhead community would set up. And people would tell me they were there for like a whole weekend in FDR Park. And like the acid that was being passed around, it's legendary down in South Philadelphia about this one year when the Dead came and everybody was tripping balls in South Philadelphia.
Yeah,
You know, I
and
mean,
in the
but
fans, you're right, man. So it's like when they go on tour, it was like a city. It was like a whole economy that was dependent
yeah,
upon them. People going around and selling all their
yeah,
tie-dye shirts and their patchouli and all their hemp stuff. And it was, I don't know. Whenever Further was on the road, like 2020, maybe I went and saw them, and I
yeah,
was amazed that all these people that were still like, Jerry had been dead for 5 years. Whenever I saw them, might have been closer to 20
yeah.
years. I don't remember, but it was like, man, and they were still going. There's still people that, that's like the people that follow the band around
Because
the country.
the fans won't let it die. It's too big. It's too meaningful. Now, there's other things like the Grateful Dead. Like you have these um dedication bands, these cover bands. that cover Grateful Dead shows. You got Dark Star Orchestra, which is fabulous. And then you got a band called Joe Russo's Almost Dead. And they are the best ones out there. They make up their own shows, but what Dark Star Orchestra does, they pick a show that they did, we'll say 6/18/76, they did a show. We're going to play that show to a T tonight. So you have to guess what year it is. You
and I went one year. Like, we went on like a
Black
Friday. It was like their Black Friday show. They play Philadelphia every year. You and I went.
That was a great night. That was a great night. We had a great time.
When I first heard that, when you told me that's what they did, I was kind of like, okay. But now there's a couple Springsteen bands that do that, and there's actually one's playing down at Asbury Park this weekend. My wife and I are going to go see, and they'll be like, "Oh, they're playing, the recreating the X show," and I know enough that I'm like, "Oh crap, that's a really good right." I know that set list, so it's like
like I mean, I hear years like I'm like, yo, they're playing a show from 72. I'm like, dude, 72 was the best fucking year because they did this and they did this chord progression during this song. And I'm really geeked, man. Like, I go down the rabbit hole about like recordings.
Yeah, they're like just culturally. They're also like, I have in my notes here somewhere about that Jerry is the most recorded guitar player in history. They estimate that there's 15,000 hours of tape of him playing guitar.
That's amazing. I hope they release it for the rest of my life. Like little by little.
Like the company that I think Rhino Records owns like their vault. And they were saying that like they could release, it was like 8 shows a year, and they have another like 35 years of material. Like, so they've done, I looked this up. From 65 to 95, when Jerry died, they played about 2,300 concerts. They played about 450 to 500 different songs. And then they played collectively over there's 37,000 songs they played live. And it was all,
unreal.
All of that shit is recorded. And it's all recorded either from the tapers, which we can talk about, and also they recorded their own stuff off the soundboard. Like, they were so far ahead of their time. They're like, hey, man, let's take this stuff.
Yeah. You would have, like, you were just saying, the tapers, our audience may not know, but early on, the Grateful Dead would let you come into their show with your recording equipment and bootleg the show for free. In the 70s, they were doing this. They were encouraging bootlegging their show. So what happened?
I read that they said like they got fed up with the people that were trying to bootleg. Like, they were getting in the way, and they were getting in front of the soundboard. So finally, they were just like, "All right, guys, like you can do it. Just go over here and do it."
Yeah. They have their own section. It's called the taper section. And you can buy tickets for that. You really have to know someone you got to be in that circle
to get tickets
to really get into.
That's another good point about them too. I mean, like, in my real life, I'm in the marketing industry, and allowing your fans to tape everything, right? Compare that to Metallica. Lars Ulrich is going to sue some kid for tapping out Master of Puppets on his book after hearing it in Stranger Things. And then you got the Grateful Dead.
Yes.
Or the Grateful Dead also, like, right, their first albums, right, they put something on the back, like, who are you, how are you, send us a card, keep in touch.
Yes.
And it was like the first, like, viral marketing in music. It's really cool.
They were the first word-to-mouth band. It's like they are known as a live band. They have recordings from being in the studio, which we'll play some. They're great to listen to. But where it's really at is where the live tapes are. Like, Cornell 77 was so famous. But then the Dead was so tired of crappy recordings of it, they officially released it. And now Cornell sounds fucking unreal on Spotify. And I've had it for all these years on a bootleg. Now it sounds like flawless.
It's interesting that even watching that documentary, I've read a couple books on the Dead, and saying like, when they would go in the studio, they had no idea what they were doing, and they were racking up like tens of thousands of dollars in debt because they were like just meandering through the process, and
they said they didn't care about what the money was spending. They were going to learn how the studio was
yeah,
made. Like they wanted to use it as an instrument, and they took all the time in the world for that first album to make. They really got
yeah.
spacey on
The
that
first
first
couple, I
record.
guess, because they
Um,
were like, instead of going in saying, here's the album written, this is what we're going to play, they were like, all right, we'll just figure it out as we kind of go along in the studio, and without really thinking about like, hey man, like, the meter's running as you're recording all this kind of stuff, and they were just getting
yeah,
crushed with debt and
like
everything else.
the lawyers would send them letters and like threaten them and shit, and they would correct the spelling of the letters and write "fuck you" on them and send it back to them. Like, dude, they didn't care. They're like, throw us off your label, we
Right.
don't care. Like, but um that's how unorganized they were. They didn't give a fuck if they were on a record label. They were just happy. All right, we're in the studio. We're going to learn how to do this. Like they went to college. That was them going to
Yeah.
college. But they never made that money back. That was just like,
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like there's something to be said about like they really just didn't care. Like, Jerry never wanted to say I was in charge. But also
no, like it's not that they didn't care. The only thing they cared about was
right.
the music. All that rest of this shit was a drag. Like all the business stuff to them. They just wanted to drop acid and fucking play tunes. And then all of a sudden it became this job.
But there's other bands too, man. Like, I mean,
And
the story of rock and roll is littered with bands that have this very reverential opinion. Like, I'm sure the Stones think that musical is some magical thing, but they got their shit together as a business, right? It's like what could the
yes.
Dead
Oh,
have
yeah.
been if they had like had somebody with a little bit of business smarts around them? You know what I mean?
Well, people tried, and people got so fed up with them, they just walked away from the whole business end of it for the Dead. Like, I can't do this anymore. You guys are too fucked up. Nobody put a hold on those guys because nobody wanted to take responsibility for the mayhem.
Yeah, and the mayhem, that's a good point too. Like one thing I walked away watching that documentary series was like, yeah, maybe you think that like, oh, they're these happy dudes and they're just kind of they're writing the music and they're improvising and everything, but they had some Ramrod they were like he would knock out a fucking police officer if you looked at him wrong. They had some bad
they were
around in their circle.
They were cowboys. They were cowboys, man. They were reform school dudes. Like you have to think to get something off the road, to get something off the ground, something like the Grateful Dead, you have to suffer through it. Like you're going to be homeless. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. You're going to be on the road all fucking night. And that takes a special kind of person. And a person to knock out a fucking cop,
right,
because he wants to, is the perfect guy to be in charge, in my opinion.
It's true.
You know,
also,
like if somebody,
there was also a story in the documentary too about like I forget, they went to somebody's house, they went to a party or something. It might have even been the Playboy Mansion or something. They went somewhere and they laced all the coffee with acid and didn't tell anybody.
Yes, it was.
And I remember,
it was the Playboy. It was the Playboy After Dark.
Yeah,
TV
and I was
show.
thinking, like, man, that's kind of like, it's kind of shitty. I was like, like you're there. Yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, you guys are going to take drugs whether you want to or not. I don't. Maybe it was just the mood I was in. I was listening to it kind of early.
Oh, I listen. I hear you. Like to slip somebody something that they're not, they're not knowing or expecting. That's just wrong. I mean, people wind up dying by a wrong mix of somebody mixing them something. But you have to remember though, when you go to these acid tests, you're if you have the Grateful Dead around you, don't drink anything.
Fair.
Don't like it's the fucking Grateful Dead. It's like in that Motley Crue movie. Right. Like he says, don't ever leave your girlfriend with Motley Crue.
Right.
Yeah, like,
Yeah. I don't know, man.
don't ever. Yeah, don't ever. No, I get it. I get it.
I had a friend of mine who we would go out after playing softball, go to the local tavern, and I wasn't drinking any alcohol at the time, and I was drinking some water, and he had like spiked the water with a bunch of like painkillers, and I got like
Oh
he
my
was like
god,
crushing up Percocets and putting them in the water, and I had a couple, and I got really
dude, that's not
really
cool.
mad at him. I was like, dude, I'm like trying to, I was going through a period of sobriety in my life, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, and I should know better than like ever be around the dude and have something to drink, but yeah, I don't know, man. Just that with the dad, I was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of crappy.
No, you're right.
But I also,
but
like
it was
you said,
it was the times,
yeah, sure.
though.
And like you said, man, you don't drink anything that they give you if you don't.
But the thing though with the Playboy thing was the party, they made the TV show seem like there was a party going on, and it was just a set and extras and everything like that and Playboy bunnies. So here comes the Grateful Dead thing. They're joining a party, and it's this TV set.
Yeah.
So here they come. They're like, all right, well, we're going to dose us. We're going to dose some of the thing. So Hugh Hefner comes down. He takes a dose. Next thing you know, it's a real party. Like they said, they took a set made it into a party. Like it's famous footage of Jerry Garcia sitting there talking to Hugh Hefner on acid. It's I don't know. It was the times, Bruce. It was, instead of like slipping people Mickeys kind of thing, it's like, all right, we're going to give you this experience. Right. This is what's going on right now. This is what we're about.
Tripping is synonymous with them, right? And especially where they, came up, right?
Yes,
they were playing, we didn't talk about it yet, but, they cut their teeth really, like that whole, the acid test and everything that's happened in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, that's like ground zero for the hippie movement and the Summer of Love. And, they were them and Jefferson Airplane,
they were there
all those
first.
other bands that came out of that era.
They all would rent those Victorian houses. They were like mansions, and like bands would live in these houses. The Grateful Dead house is very famous because they all lived there. There's a famous picture of them outside of it, and to this day, the house is still famous because
People
of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, you can see pictures of it.
Yeah, I mean that whole area, but they invented it. They were there for the original wave of peace, love, whatever. Then it got commercialized, and everybody starts showing up to Haight-Ashbury. So it became like, I don't know, like grunge came in, and everybody jumped on that bandwagon. But the bandwagon was in San Francisco.
That's exactly what I put in my notes. It came to an end because it got popular and the squares moved in. The same thing happened with punk and grunge. Right? They start selling the flannel shirts everywhere, or they're selling the Misfits T-shirt at Target, and it gets kind of lame.
No, you look at fashion in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a lot of flower power, a lot of bell bottoms. The fashion is, I think, what killed the music. Like everybody, I would say it's easier to look like you're from Mars than understanding the music.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh, we're part of the crowd. We're here, we're part of it, and like that. No, you're here and you're fucking
house or something, and like a bus rolled up, and like a tour guide was pointing out, like, here's the Grateful Dead, and he was like, it's over. Like,
yeah. They're like, let's get the fuck out of here.
And it was also, I think, like so many people descended upon that area too. It was like very communal living kind of stuff, and all these people showed up, and they're like, we can't. I remember I read something with Jerry. He was like, dude, we can't, like, as a community, we can feed 1,000 people who got nowhere to go, but we can't feed 20,000 people.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of their weekends probably were disaster zones. Like, official, like there wasn't enough water to go around. Like that's like, I'm sure a lot of their gigs were like that.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like, because they said like some of their early, people were on bad trips and, all kinds of other stuff. Like people don't know what's going on, and they're getting all zonked out, and it's probably,
it's still alive out there. Plenty of people at the Dead and Company were trying to sell it. God knows, I have my own opinion about it. I keep it to myself. I don't do drugs, most drugs, but hey, it's not for everybody. If you have a hang up about something in your life, dude, you shouldn't be doing it. You really should really have yourself together. But, and I say this in every way, get fucked up on acid, there's no way is ever way fucked up than you were drinking. Like, you can get blasted and you're dangerous. You're fucking dangerous. On the other level of acid, you're very calm and there's nothing going on. So you've been blasted way more than I felt from any hit of acid I've ever took. But that's me though. I am a Grateful Dead fan. I embrace their culture into my life. They saved my life. They really did. I was going through a bad part of my life, and I found them spiritually. That was a big thing to me. It really saved me. It saved my life.
So
man.
People that listen to them, that's what they're gonna say. Yeah.
It's like they have so many fucking great songs. Let's play a great song now.
We've been talking for a while, not playing anything.
Let's play Uncle John's
Band. Here we go. Off the Working Man's Dead studio version.
Well, the first days are the hardest days. Don't you worry anymore. 'Cause when life looks like easy street, there is danger at your door. Think this through with me. Let me know your mind.
What are they as a band? I think that's one of the reasons that they're so interesting too, is like because they, there's elements of jazz and bluegrass and like that. Got that Southern California Eagles kind of sound, and
they invented that sound. That California sound,
soft country kind of sound.
But before Jerry Garcia played the electric guitar, he played banjo. He played banjo in a lot of bluegrass bands. That's what he did before the Grateful Dead. He played in bluegrass bands like trios, and I think that banjo playing early on really made Jerry I hate calling it noodling. I hate that when people say that, but that's the only way to describe, because you kind of noodle on the banjo. Noodling around. What Jerry did soloing was dude, everybody was copying it from those days. Everybody was copying it, but they had better managers. The bands.
Yeah, I mean, there's also not a lot of, but there's not a lot of famous bluegrass musicians either, right? So I mean, he's one of the few that made the jump.
No, Jerry was a music teacher at first. He taught guitar. That's how he met Bob Weir. Bob Weir's the other guitar player in the Grateful Dead guys. Bob Weir is a good 7 years younger than Jerry. So Jerry was like this older brother to Bob when they first met, and they were taking lessons together before the Grateful Dead got together. So Jerry's got a big bluegrass kind of background, because I think that's basically his foundation of what his music is. Country, bluegrass.
I think that's one of the interesting things of their them as a band, is how diverse like their backgrounds are. Because Jerry was the bluegrass guy, and you said Bob with his background, Pigpen being a blues guy. Phil Lesh was like a classically trained. What is a trumpet? He's a trumpet player, a sax player.
I'm not sure. I think he was a cello player. I don't know what he did, but it was classical music. and you could tell by his bass playing that he's trained classically.
Yeah.
You know, when Phil's going off, we call him Phil bombs. And he just drops those bombs through all the songs.
Yeah, he was like really into like playing a lot of like avant-garde, you know, the kind of shit most of you wouldn't want to listen to. He was a trumpet player.
But you know, right on. I mean, Phil is a snob musically. I think Phil's an asshole just because business end of it. That's why he won't split the dough. So that's why he's not playing with Dead and Company. But musically, he's probably the most taught, most professional musician out of those dudes.
Yeah, and I think I thought the story was like when he started hanging out with those guys, they were like, "All right, cool, you can play with us, but we need a bass player, and that's what you're going to play." And they were like,
"Yeah," and he was like,
"Yeah,"
he was like, "Okay,
sure. Okay." And there's a lot of musicians that came into the band like that too, like people that was kind of like hanging around them, or like, "Hey, can I play keyboards with you?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, let's go."
No, sure, absolutely. Donna Jean became their backup singer, and her husband became the piano player. But first, they were fans of the band, and they were like, I don't want to be a fan of this band. I want to be in the band. And they fucking searched it out and got into. They were crazy. That serious.
I saw that interview too. It's just nuts.
You're like, you're the biggest fan in the world of this band. That you go seek them out because you want to play with them. And this is still in 70 something. It's not like, they're household names, in the 70s.
Yeah. Also about musician too. Like, I mean, they're one of the few bands too, like they have two drummers.
Yeah. Billy and Mickey Hart. Billy is the original drummer. Billy is this R&B drummer. He's very fucking good. He's one of my favorite drummers. And then a few years later, Mickey Hart joined the band as the second drummer of the band. One plays the on-beat, one plays the off-beat. I personally like the one drummer years of the Grateful Dead. That's just
I was going to ask you as a drummer, what do you think of a band having two drummers? To me, 1972 of the Grateful Dead was the best years. 72 to 75 is because of that. Is because they had one drummer, and Bill fucking kicked ass on Europe 72. You ever want to hear the Dead with just one drummer, you can listen to Europe 72, which is really famous recording in the Grateful Dead when they went to Europe. And the one drummer, and it sounds fucking great. Because that shit's like real cluttered. Like when you have two drummers playing, I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool. The acid's great. Everything's rocking like that. But all in all, dude, it sounds like a mess. I'm a one drummer kind of guy. On top of each other. I mean, I can't think of another band that's got two drummers. I'm sure the Dead's not the only one.
No, there's a few out there. I can't think
of it off the top of my head.
There's a few out there.
Yeah, man, why don't we play something from that era? You got a couple songs on here from like 71 on the playlist. Looks like you got Truckin', Bertha, Sugar Magnolia.
Why don't you play Sugar Magnolia?
Sugar Magnolia, blossom burning, petal empty and I don't care. So my baby down by the river, she'd have to come up super air. Sweet blossom, come on, under the willow. We can have our time to fuel the fire. Discover the wonders of nature, rolling in the rushes down by the riverside.
Now that's a Bob song. See, everybody thinks Jerry was the lead singer. Like Jerry sang all the songs. No, man. Bob was the second singer too. He was also the singer, and his songs rock just like Jerry's songs.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I like the stuff that Bob Weir sings on.
Me too. I don't know. I musically have a lot in common with Bob. Bob is dyslexic, and so am I. So how he breaks down music and how he plays his chords is maybe something I can recognize more musically than somebody playing a certain way that's not dyslexic. You know, he plays it in his own way, his own style, and it's unique.
Yeah.
Unique as all hell. Nobody plays like Bobby Weir.
I've known you for over 25 years. I didn't know you were dyslexic.
Well, it's something I overcame, you know?
Yeah.
But I know how it is. I can't, you know, a lot of people had a lot worse than I did. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
My two boys are both dyslexic. So
yeah. You know, I have a weird way of learning how to play the drums because I was. You know, I had to figure out on my own terms how to play the drums because I would look at like the sheet music and everything would look backwards to me. So I was like, this is not fucking helping me. So, you know, I had to learn a different way.
Yeah. I'm trying to think there's another Bob song. I was listening to some Dead this morning, like Throwing Stones. I like, it's a Bob Weir song.
Yeah.
I like that song a lot.
I like Estimated Profit. There's a song called Estimated Profit. It's one of my favorite ones.
I was going to suggest that as be the what we came into out of the monologue to, just because it's just kind of got like a bopping.
Do you have it
kind of vibe to it?
Do you have it chopped up?
I can get it. Yeah. Hang on, I can get it.
Because it's such a weird song. I don't mind hearing a little bit of it.
Yeah, the whole album is really weird, man. It's kind of like I don't know. Yeah, it's off the Terrapin Station album.
Terrapin's a great album, dude.
Yeah. All right, here's a little bit of Estimated Profit.
It's so weird.
Rainbows in down that highway where ocean breezes blow. My time coming, voices say, and they tell me where to go. Don't worry about me. Oh, no, don't worry about me, no. And I'm in no hurry. I know where to go. California, reaching on the burning shore. California.
I love it. That's one of my favorite Dead albums.
Yeah, dude.
It's only like 6 songs, and Terrapin Station.
No,
like
but Terrapin,
20 minutes long.
Terrapin's the whole second side of the record.
Yeah.
You know, which is my favorite Terrapin Station. But Estimated Profit, a lot of Grateful Dead songs are in 4/4 drumming wise. In Estimated Profit, it's in 7. So it's a whole weird fucking timing that it took me a long time to figure it out. I could play it now, but when I first heard it in 7, I was like, "What the fuck is this? How do you play this?"
The tuning of the guitar too is like, it's just a different sound than what like I think Jerry has one of the most recognizable guitar sounds, right? It's very it's like his voice too. It's very like fragile sounding.
Oh God. Let's just say, man, he's one of the greatest voices of rock and roll or any kind of music. He's so spiritually, man. He's
like
so
his guitar singing and his voice just kind of have the same thing, but and that song Estimated Profit just has a way different vibe to it.
Yeah, the wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wah wah pedal. Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs, man. Jerry had a different way of playing. But Jerry also, you know, had his own great songs. Jerry had a lot of help from Robert Hunter write his lyrics for songs. Jerry was a great songwriter in like musically way, but he had a lot of help from a guy named Robert Hunter, and he wrote all these amazing songs. And one of the most amazing songs to me, a Jerry song, is Ripple. Can we hear a little bit of Ripple?
Yeah, man. Here's a little bit of Ripple off American Beauty.
If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tunes were played on the heart of the strum. Would you hear my voice?
Yeah, man. Robert Hunter is an interesting dude, man. So he's the only person inducted with a band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who's not a performer.
Really? I didn't know he was inducted with them.
He was inducted with the band in '94, but he's the only non-performer to be inducted as a member of a band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So
he should be in there. I saw Robert Hunter one time. He played during intermission during a version of the Grateful Dead called The Dead.
Yeah.
And in between the sets, Robert Hunter came out and played all these magical songs, dude. And I never saw him again after that. Like, he's still alive, but
no, he died in 2019.
Did he? Did he die?
He passed away. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also a reason why he's like he can't sing. He's not a good singer.
But for me to say I saw him say some of his magical lyrics, I mean, he was the words of the Grateful Dead, and to see him in person was always memorable for me.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of those songs.
He was always like, you think he couldn't get any more spiritual, and he would get even more deeper and write a song like "Friend of a Devil."
Yeah,
like that's. Can we hear a little bit of that?
Yeah, man. Here you go.
I lit out from Reno, I was trailed by 20 hounds. Didn't get to sleep that night till the morning came around. Set out run, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight.
That album is great, man. The American
Beauty. Yeah. Like we were talking about how they made that first record, and they were just like taking their time and fucking around. When they said they made Working Man, and when they were American Beauty, they went in, they did their homework before and just fucking slapped it out. Like 2 albums back to back with these amazing fucking songs on them, man. Nothing was like the Grateful Dead at that time.
Yeah, but then they finally had an album that was like, that did well too. It wiped out all their debt and kind of gave them the freedom to do more that they wanted to, like going on the road and all that other kind of stuff.
Their home is the road. That's that, they were gypsies. They lived on the road. I think a big responsibility that I think Jerry felt responsibility for all these people, for culture. Like, if you don't know the Grateful Dead is famous for having a shopping section called Shakedown Street. You could buy anything hippie you want on Shakedown Street. It's a moving mall for hippies, and people rely on the band to go on tour to make money, for them to go out and sell their knickknacks and sell their posters, sell their t-shirts. Jerry felt responsible for all those dudes, like a cultural thing that, God, that would kill anybody.
Yeah, man. I read a book. I think it was a collection of cover story interviews from Rolling Stone, and it was one with Jerry. And I think he was saying at some point, like, the band wanted to give it a rest, but they couldn't, because he's like, we have all these people like dependent upon us as an economy, and we got to keep playing.
Yeah. Imagine having that responsibility, and you're just a guitar player,
Right. He doesn't even want to be the leader of his own band. And then and hundreds of these other people that he doesn't even know that rely on him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking, how do you deal? I think that's why Jerry was so isolated himself with drugs. He couldn't be left alone. Like, he couldn't go anywhere because he was the face of the Grateful Dead. He would sit in his hotel room, and all the Deadheads would like try to get up to his hotel room and scaffold up walls to climb his window and shit. Like people doing outrageous shit. And Jerry's like this 250-pound guy, and you just want to be plays guitar, but everybody made him this prophet.
Yeah. They said like he almost never talked to the audience, when they performed. Like but everybody was hanging on every single thing that every note he played. They're hanging on him. And even, I mean, like the end of his life too it's really sad. The band had an intervention with him. They're like, it's either us or you, and then he was in a coma for a while, 30 years of drugs, and he was overweight, and he smoked, and he was diabetic, and then he finally tried to get his shit together and went into rehab, and he had a heart attack while he was there.
His body couldn't take the recovery.
Yeah.
He was so dependent on, we'll call it microdosing. He microdosed his whole life with heroin.
Yeah.
And when you stop doing that shit, your body has to be strong to heal from it. And Jerry was just so beat up and so tired. And I think he was just so sad there's some of these footage of Jerry at Chicago at the last gig, and he's playing Morning Dew, and he's just really sad looking. He looks like a ghost up there. And then he died 3 weeks later.
Yeah, people really, looking back, they kind of crap on that era. Like his heart wasn't in it anymore. He didn't care anymore. But he was only 53 when he died. But
isn't that amazing?
It was a rough. Yeah, he looked way older.
Do you remember where you were when you heard Jerry died?
I only remember working in Sam Goody, working in the mall, because across the hallway from us there was one of those head shops that sold all the patchouli,
flashback kind of
shit.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. And I remember those people just going. The two musicians I remember dying as a kid, man, was Kurt Cobain and Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, well, I think they're the only two that really mattered in the 90s. I mean, we lost Freddie Mercury and about other, but look at those two guys that we lost.
Yeah.
In a couple of years, two cultural iconic things. I mean, Kurt, whatever, and Jerry slowly killed himself too.
Yeah.
I think all drug addicts are slowly killing themselves. And, you hear a little bit more and more and more about this microdosing. And it's people, you'd be surprised, Bruce, people that are microdosing heroin. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember reading stories about him too. He would have heroin mailed to the next hotel room because he wasn't going to get through customs with it, so he'd have it shipped somewhere. So it was his black tar heroin, so he could have some after a show. And
imagine being the face of this icon, and you're trying to be an addict at the same time.
Right?
But that's a shame.
It really was. The end of his life was kind of sad, and it's really sad too. For a dude who had this very, he didn't care about the money and everything else. It's really sad how his wife and his ex-wives they all fought over his estate.
His daughter has everything now. His daughter has 100% owner of his likeness and everything, and that's who should have it. I met her one time. I had to say hello to her because it was Jerry's daughter. They own a bar in the Capitol Theater where is it? I'm having a brain fart, guys. I'm sorry. But she's involved in this Garcia bar somewhere.
Okay.
But she gets all the rights to it. She has all the control over what's being released. Like you said, all that tape that Jerry left behind. She's going to put all that shit out, man. You watch, little by little.
The Jerry Garcia bar is up in New York at the Capitol. You said the Capitol Theater.
It's I forget what town it's called. not Bethel. Rye, New York. That's what it is.
Yeah, somewhere
Rye,
up there.
yeah. Which is a
And
great place to see a band.
You mentioned that in the American Pie episode. We were talking about Rye, New York, and Jerry also he he was that like the later end of his life. He was into like scuba diving, and he was like really into art. You can still find a lot of his. He designed like tie. I think I have a Jerry Garcia tie I've had since I was in college,
but I give a lot of. Jerry fell in love again with his first girlfriend he ever had. Like after the first girlfriend he had, he got married, had kid, blah blah. All these years later, he got in contact with that first girlfriend, and she whipped him into shape, And then she had him good for a good 3-4 years, like making it happen.
Yeah.
And then Jerry started using again, and then she confronted him about it, and Jerry's just like, I think it's time for you to leave. Here's a girl that saved his life, and he was just like, fuck you, I'm going to do heroin. That's how strong that shit is, man.
Yep. You were talking about like Robert. We were talking about Robert Hunter and these guys, kind of like in the orbit of the Grateful Dead, and an important role that they played. Another dude that had a important role was Owsley Stanley.
Oh yeah,
the
Oswald
bear
Stanley. He was a chemist. He was a sound engineer.
Yeah,
he was a bouncer. He made the acid that Purple Haze was written about.
Yes,
he's very famously known as being the guy that made Purple Haze.
He also designed.
But he was
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, he was also the sound man for the Grateful Dead, and he made this huge stage soundboard, and they call it the Wall of Sound.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it. So Owsley Stanley too is also famous for he designed the Marching Bear logo.
Yes, definitely that's him too. Yep.
And we can talk about some of the band's
logos.
Icons and stuff. Yeah, logos. But the Wall of Sound, man, it was like holy shit. So it was like, I mean, really how far ahead of their time they were. Like, because we talked about like the Beatles stopping performing, the Stones having to stop performing because they couldn't project. Like technology wasn't advanced enough. So like if you went to a big show, like you couldn't hear these bands. And then they made this thing of like 600 speakers, this amazing PA system.
It was, I mean, you hear the stories about the Wall of Sound, how it sounded unbelievably, and I'm sure it did, but it was such a pain in the balls for the guys that put it up every night and take it down. He said it was constantly breaking, or the fucking local union guys wouldn't be involved. They would refuse to like hitch it up or whatever, because the other guys weren't union, and you know how that goes.
Yeah, they said like at one point they had two of them, so like one would try to go, to the next gig because you couldn't do it in one night. Like the band would play till 2, and they'd be like, you work nonstop. Like you take it down, you box it up, you drive the next gig, and then you start putting it up right away, and you're like just finishing as the band is rolling in for sound check.
Oh, dude, I know a lot of stagehand guys, and they're there during the day, and when the concert's going on, they're sleeping.
Yeah.
There's because when that show's over, they gotta pack the fuck up and get out of town because the next show starts at 8:00 the next day.
Yeah, it's really it's really crazy. Just even seeing the pictures of it, man. It's just
it's beautiful.
Just how it's all rigged together, and like there's like such a science in it. Like the what they said, the ones for the bass were 32 feet high because that's how high a sound wave for a bass is.
Yeah,
and there's like a science to it. It wasn't like fuck it, we're gonna try to make this as big as we can.
And it was all this guy Bear.
Yeah.
Phil Lesh had a lot to do with it, but this guy Bear, like he changed live sound for everybody. So now the Stones can go out there and play JFK Stadium no problem.
Yeah.
Or like that was like no problem. After the Dead came up with that shit, they're like, okay, this is what we have to do to make this concert louder.
And they did a lot. He and the rest of the crew did a lot around like how mics are set up so you're not getting blown out with feedback, and
Yeah,
where the PA was behind the band and everything.
You ever see those pictures? Some artists do it through the 70s. There's two microphones taped together on one stand, one for the highs and one for the lows on each side of the stage.
Yeah.
Now it's, everything's digital now and everything.
Yeah.
But, I hear the wall sound was nothing but a nightmare. But I mean, it worked most of the time. But the storage part of it and the putting it together and the traveling with it, it's just like they had to abandon it after a while.
Yeah, it was like the early 70s. They finally just said we can't do this anymore. But it's kind of like it's a really big impact on just the overall story of rock and roll that I guess you got to kind of be into them a little bit to know that they really helped advancing that technology.
It's like they were revolutionaries in everything.
Yeah.
Because nothing to them was more important than the sound of the music. Nothing was more important than that bass sound, that wave of bass coming through the crowd, and the wall sound made their sound dream come true. But like I said, they had to abandon it after a couple of years because it got too much money to take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like you can see the clips of like the 18-wheelers with the Steal Your Face logo on the front rolling down the street with all the crap in it, and what a nightmare that had to have been. Especially in the 70s too. But it's still a really cool, like we've talked before about like Dick Dale trying to get like Marshall stacks that are that don't melt when he plays them, and then the Dead just put together this monstrosity. It's really cool.
Let's play a song.
Yeah, man.
Let's play Scarlet Begonias.
Scarlet Begonias, all right.
Not a chill to the winter, but a dip to the air. From the other direction, she was caught in my eye. It could be an illusion, but I might as well try. She had rings on her fingers and bells on her shoes, and I knew without asking she was.
That's another song I really like by them.
Oh yeah, a lot of people know that song because Sublime covered it.
Yeah,
Sublime had a big hit with it. So every a lot of people don't know it's a Grateful Dead song.
I don't think I've ever heard Sublime's version of that. Interesting. I'll have to look that up and listen to it. Yeah,
it sucks. It's not like it does. It's just more reggae and sped up kind of thing. Nothing beats the original, dude. Come on, nothing. But what the Grateful Dead is also known for is these long jams. What they do, we could play Scarlet Begonias, this version that we just played. I believe it's 15 minutes long.
Yeah,
like they really jam it out and really improvise a lot of their middles of the songs. Like there's a structure to the song, but then in the middle of it, they'll jam off, man.
Yeah,
like they'll jam to a point you're like, all right, let's move on to the next song, dudes.
Yeah, it's funny. There's like sometimes listen to the Grateful Dead station on like Sirius XM, and they'll have like the medley of like 3 songs. And which is like, when you have that little the little symbol between it to like this song goes into that song, that's like shorthand for this is going to be a really friggin' long thing.
Yeah.
And I've totally had songs like it starts and I pull into like Target and I go in and run my errands and come out and the same song still playing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a big part of their show. Like,
sure,
if our listeners don't know about the Grateful Dead show, the Grateful Dead play 2 sets. They have no opening act. They have 2 sets. The first set comes in, it's daylight still, and it's pretty happening. And then they take a 20-minute break, but then the nighttime starts, and that's when the party fucking starts, man.
Yeah.
But you get lost in their jams live in concert. You start seeing the lights. You're people watching. uh, there's a lot of interesting things to think about during the Grateful Dead. You know, it for me it is anyway. It's very, maybe I get my breath of fresh air when I get to see them. Like, okay, I got my fix. I'm good for a couple months. You know?
Right on, yeah. Well, and the fans being, the people watching and the fans, the visuals of that are such a big deal. And then we kind of hinted on this a little bit, like the logos too with the band. It's like some of the most iconic. Yeah, they're right up there with the the lips and tongue from the Stones.
Sure,
like
sure. To steal your face, like that skull, the skull with the lightning bolt in there. It's steal your face.
I always thought that was funny, man. It's like, oh, the band's called the Grateful Dead, and they got this awesome logo of a skull with a friggin' lightning bolt through it. Then you listen to the music, and you're like, wait, this isn't like what that looks like.
It's so funny. When I first, people don't know anything about the Dead. They always say oh, I thought they were a heavy metal band.
Right.
I got that a lot. Like even my father said that to me, like 15 years ago. Oh, I thought they were a heavy metal band because they're called the Grateful Dead.
Sure. And they've got, like the Skull and Roses. That's another famous one. The Marching Bears we already talked about. The Terrapin Station Turtles.
The Turtles. There's so many things that like represent different things for the Grateful Dead. A lot of but you only know it if you're part of the club, man. You really have to go down a rabbit hole to really understand the Grateful Dead. There's so many layers to it, bro.
Yeah, definitely not. Like I said before, there's not a lot of like casual no,
fans. It's you hate them or you fucking love them. There's no in between.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who hate them just don't get them.
Well, that's the thing I think about it. You have to have the experience of a live concert with the Grateful Dead. You have to go down, you have to do the parking lot scene, chill out, go into the show, listen to some amazing music, or be around some amazing people, and it's an amazing experience. I'm going to get the warden to go to a show with me. I'm going to get the warden to go. Yeah.
They were just in town too, man. You think we missed our boat, but
we'll get him known something.
He's a new man now with his new tattoo. So
how about that?
Yeah,
that was all me.
It was all you. He's a new man. So
God bless him. It looks great, Rob.
He did a nice job, and you hooked him up with a artist too. He did a really nice job.
He needed a cover up so bad. I treated this tattoo like it was mine. Like I sent him to my guy. Whatever. Congratulations, Rob. You got a badass tattoo.
Yep. Circle back to the Dead, man. What's also an interesting thing about them is that they were around for so long, and for as successful as they were, and everybody knows them, and everybody knows the logos, and they know Jerry. They only ever had one hit. They only had one song ever commercial hit.
Well, there's the top 10. There was only one like top 10.
I think it was like top 40. I think it was their only top 40 hit. I wrote it in my notes.
We're talking about Touch of Grey.
Yeah, Touch of Grey was their only top 40 single.
Because I always thought Casey Jones was also a single, but that's maybe I'm confused. But yeah, Touch of Grey was phenomenal, man. Yeah, it was culturally. It culturally made the Grateful Dead a huge iconic thing. They were big, but after Touch of Grey came back and they had that video on MTV, everybody wanted to go to the concerts.
I mean, that was my first exposure to them. I mean, that came out in the early '90s. I was a kid. I was a teenager. I didn't listen to
know
them.
about, but like I watched it. I watched the video every time it was on. How can you not? It was awesome with the puppeteers,
the puppets, the skeletons, and
I really like how the crowd looked and how they were having fun. And at a young age, I really knew who the Grateful Dead was because of this song.
Yeah, man. Yeah, here I'll play a little bit of it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
great
man.
song.
I will get by. Like,
Yep.
I will survive.
Yeah, it's just got like an uplifting message to it. I listen to that song all the time. I
Yeah.
really dig it. Yeah, man,
Cool.
it's a great introduction to the Grateful Dead too.
Yeah, it's very easy to understand that song. There's no hidden message. They come out and just say it. Every cloud has a touch of gray.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of people heard that song and they ran out to, go listen to some other stuff. And if they were running somewhere, hopefully they were wearing a pair of Boldfoot socks when they did it.
Hey, those socks are feeling great. I got a pair the other day, dude. I got on the internet. I was on the internet. I said, you know what? I want to get this because I didn't get a pair. So I wanted to check them out. And dude, they're so comfortable, bro.
They really are, man. And I mean, they make athletic socks. They make, dress socks. And we've talked about this a lot, man. One thing I really like about them is that they're made in America. They're a veteran-owned small business. They give 5% of their proceeds to American charities. Just really, really cool. And you can learn more by going to boldfoot.com. They're a fan of the show. We're a big supporter of theirs. And
Yes.
It's just really, really cool. So
I like how they're good to the vets. I'm really big on that. I'm really big on just being there for the vets now after they come home.
Absolutely. And any business that uses their position of success to pay it forward is all right with me. So Josh and the team over there at Boldfoot, they're awesome. You can check them out at boldfoot.com.
Yeah, dude, I hope he still listens to our show.
Yeah, man, I'm sure he does. He was binge listening. We were going back and forth talking about some episodes. So all good stuff. So
cool, man. Cool.
I know we've been talking for like an hour and 15 minutes, man. Maybe take a commercial break. We'll come back. I don't know if there's a ton more stuff. Maybe play some more tunes we can talk about.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear. Well, we're in no rush.
I really have no outline to this show because I kind of I felt dirty. I was like, I can't over prepare to do a show about the Dead and be, just kind of winging it, just like everything else.
But like, I like to think I could talk freely about the Grateful Dead. I'm like that big of a fan.
Yeah, sure. We're just having a conversation. So
yeah.
All right, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
All right, stick around.
Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia. There's something for everyone on the beer list and the jukebox at McCusker's. It's minutes from the sports stadiums in Philly, making it a great place to stop by for a few drinks before or after a concert or a game. Come see for yourself why everyone from Philadelphia Magazine to Playboy has called it one of the best dive bars in the city. Visit them at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia or on Facebook. That's McCusker's Tavern. Cornell 77, that's what you were talking about earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Like how good that sounds.
And that's from the official release that they put out a couple years ago. It sounds great.
So is that something you had a bootleg of?
I did.
When you were younger, and then you get to hear like the real version, like the clean out of the soundboard version.
Yep. I had a friend who was older than me that gave me like bootlegs of Cornell like years and years and years ago. And it sounds good, whatever, but it's nothing like when the Grateful Dead put the official release out. Like they put box sets out of it. They have it out on vinyl. They really did justice to it. Like really made it good,
That's another good point too, man. When you said they put out box sets, like a couple of the stuff I was reading, they're talking about like concert stuff coming out. Like they would do they closed like the Winterland Ballroom.
Oh yeah, the Winterland,
like a big deal. And that was like, that was a huge thing, like Billy Graham's spot. But then they were like, oh, we put out like a 70 CD box set for like all these days.
Yeah.
And I was like, who buys that? And
they're out there.
They do, man. People go out and buy them.
I know them. I know I have friends. And I'm like, ooh, that's so cool. I wish I could, but I don't have anything. I can't do anything with it. Maybe
Right.
if I got it on vinyl, it's like $500 on vinyl.
Yeah.
It comes with like 5 discs or whatever, 5
Right.
records, but it's
Yeah.
like $300. It's nuts.
Like back when, like iTunes was a thing, and I used to be like meticulous with like all my iTunes stuff, like had to be like named a certain way and all my files. And I had, after Springsteen, I think the Dead were the most I had like gigs and gigs and gigs of bootlegs and concerts
Yeah.
and stuff that I would
Yeah.
download.
Yeah. I am total download guy, like with live
Yeah.
shit. Not so much with the recording from the albums, but from all the live shit that they put out. If you go to Spotify, if you look up the Grateful Dead, their whole library is on Spotify.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the records. I'm talking about all the things we're talking about, like Cornell, live from Cornell 77, has Europe 72 on there. You can just go there and listen to some of this right now.
Yeah, there's like the Dick's Picks albums.
Dick's
that would come
Picks
out,
is
the
another
live
one.
stuff. There was like
I
tons of
remember
them.
I remember working at the record store, Bruce, and the Dick's Picks just started coming out.
Yes.
And we would have to special order them all the time. And like years like to come to us, like, I gotta check these Dick's Picks Grateful Dead thing out. And I went, holy shit, no wonder it's all like volume 5 and
Right. Yeah, man. One of my favorite songs, I put it on the only song I added to the playlist you put together was I put Althea off the Without a Net.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Dead song,
Play
and that's
it.
my favorite version of that song. I'm going to play a little
Play
bit of it.
Play it.
I told Althea I wasn't feeling lost, lacking in some direction. Althea told me upon scrutiny that my back might need protection. I told Althea that treachery.
Yeah,
Love
dude.
it.
I've seen them. I've seen versions of the Grateful Dead for the last 25 years, dude. And every once in a while, I'll catch them doing that song, and I always get it like, yeah, this is the fucking jam.
Yeah, I really like it.
The other thing that I don't think our audience knows, Bruce, about the Grateful Dead is every single night is a different show.
Yes, we should have mentioned that too. That there is no like they don't even put together set lists when they go out on stage.
They barely ever go off the set list because they fly off doing something else instead of things because they go off the crowd. But in the history of the Grateful Dead, they never repeated the same song twice, or they never repeated the same set twice.
Right. And you could go, and if you want to hear like, oh, I like Althea, or I like Sugaree, you can go on Spotify and you're going to find 100 different versions of it. Like I said in the monologue, earlier in the show, they did over 500 different songs, and they did like 25,000 songs live. So it's like and they recorded everything.
Yeah, and it's all out there. If you look at that Long Strange Trip documentary, they go in the vaults and they talk about the air system in the vaults, like what kind of air system it takes
to protect protect the tapes.
Dude, like that room, it's priceless. Like that, they probably have insurance out of the ass for that.
Yeah, man, and that's a good like one of the cool things about doing this show is like, I mean, you can use music as you want to learn about history. You look at music, right? You want to learn about pop culture. You look at music. You want to learn about what was going on in politics. You look at music. Like you can use it to look at everything. And the Dead really captures that, right? Because you can learn about the hippie movement and drugs and, just like, it's just really an avenue to learn about anything you want.
Like, the Grateful Dead wasn't strangers of making of music of what was going on at the times. They didn't cover it. They made a disco song. or disco-ish song, which is one of my favorite songs. It's called Shakedown Street. It's very diverse, very different than anything we played so far. So check that out.
Here you go.
The sunny side of the street is dark. Maybe that's 'cause it's midnight and the dark of the moon. Besides, maybe the dark is from your eyes. Maybe the dark is from your eyes. Maybe the dark is from your eyes. Maybe the dark is from your eyes.
That beginning, man, sounds like it could be like in a 70s like cop show. It's like
Oh
Shaft
God,
or
yeah.
Dolomite.
Oh yeah. I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
I think the wah was popular at the time. I don't know what specific year that song came out, but there was definitely the disco groove was floating around the 70s when the song came out.
Yeah, that album came out in 78.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Mars Motel, right? Mars Motel?
No, it's on the Shakedown Street album.
Oh, what am I thinking? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Shakedown Street album. What am I talking about? The comic book guy's going to get me.
Ready, gonna come get you. Yeah, Mars Hotel was 74. And I only know that because I've got it in front of me. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Well, let's play something off of Mars. Let's play U.S. Blues real fast.
Yeah, man, sure. Here you go.
Red and white, blue suede shoes. I'm Uncle Sam. How do you do? Give me 5. I'm still alive. Ain't no luck. I learned to duck.
Take
dig
my
it.
pulse. I'm sorry, I sing along when I hear it,
No,
bro.
it's all good, man. I dig it.
That's a different kind of song too. Different feel than like Sugar Magnolia or how we were saying Sugary. This is a totally different kind of song.
Yeah, sure.
It's one of my favorite. I just like the whole Uncle Sam, that's who I am lyric. I dig that.
I think that's just part of the allure of them too, is like, because they do change their music style so much. Like there can be, acoustic stuff, some country-ish kind of stuff. We as we said before. Another interesting thing about them too was all the stuff they've done with other bands too. Like, right? Dylan and the Dead, and they did
Dylan and the
stuff with
Dead.
Tom
Oh, yeah.
Petty, all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the Grateful Dead backed everybody up at one time. Or people have come and played with the Grateful Dead a lot. You know who played with the Grateful Dead a lot in the 80s? It was Clarence Clemens.
Yes. At one point, I went down looking for like when did the Grateful Dead and Springsteen cross paths, and that was what I found was Clarence Clemens jamming with them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of their lack of egos, that they didn't care if we were like, all right, cool, we'll be the backing band for
No, they were
Bob Dylan.
No, but to be the backup be Dylan's backup band, that's some hardcore shit. Now, the Grateful Dead cover Dylan so much. What do we have? Watchtower on that list?
Yeah, All Along the Watchtower, Dylan and the Dead.
Let's play that.
There must be something out of here. Says the jungle to the thief. There's too much confusion. I can't get no relief. Businessmen, they take my wife. Plowmen, dig my earth. But I live a long life. Nobody there is why.
Great shit, man. I know you don't like Dylan's voice.
Yeah,
But-
I was just thinking that. Like, I could do without his voice. But
Yeah.
it's all right.
I love that album, Dylan and the Dead. It's basically the Grateful Dead backing up Bob Dylan on his songs. And they did a tour. For what I heard, it was the Grateful Dead came out first, did the first set, and then the second set, Bob Dylan came out and they did all Bob Dylan songs.
Right on.
That's what I heard. The legend told me that's what happened.
Really cool.
Yeah. But they were so famous in the 80s. They were just like, they got so famous, the scene got dangerous. You know, now that they were on the radio all the time with Touch of Grey and MTV, Touch of Grey, now you have more people showing up at the gig that want to join the party. You have so many people coming to the gig, there's not enough tickets for them. They're asking people not to come to the show unless you have tickets, you know? And a really dark time in the Grateful Dead history, there was the gate crashers. All the guys that didn't have tickets for the show, they all broke into the venue and flash mobbed and got in the show for free. And that was one of the darkest days in Grateful Dead history. Like, these motherfuckers, like, ruining it for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, they ruined the whole scene for everybody.
And they were at Altamont, you know, we talked about that a couple times and some other shows too. And it was like, I don't know. I read an interview with Jerry after that. And he was kind of like, oh, shucks. Well, we're all responsible for, you know, people's behavior. And it's kind of like, no, man, like that. No,
you're talking about a guy.
There's blame there.
You're talking about a guy that doesn't want to even probably anything involved of being in charge.
Yeah.
You're talking about the guy. Now, I thought when we talked about Altamont on our show, I said the Grateful Dead fucked all that up.
Right. They should have went out and killed everybody out.
Famously, the Grateful Dead didn't play because they were scared of the Hells Angels. So they were like, fuck this, we're not playing. And then everybody sat around for 3 hours waiting for the Stones to come on. Everybody got violent. Now, Dead could have came out and chilled everybody the fuck out, man.
Yeah.
They blew that, in my opinion. They blew that.
I agree.
Yeah, whoever was in charge of the Altamont really fucked that whole thing up.
Yep.
That was a dark day in history, of rock and roll history.
Rock and roll, absolutely. What else? Is that about it for the Dead? We think we covered.
Let's just play. Let's play that famous song, Casey Jones.
Casey Jones. Yeah, we didn't play that yet. Here you go. It's another Robert Hunter lyric. Here you go. Driving that train.
Driving that train, pound cocaine. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed. Trouble ahead, trouble behind. And know that notion just crossed my mind. This old and
It's another great song.
Dude, I mean, that song is just as famous as Touch of Grey, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
I just think it's culturally known. Like, even my father knows that song. Yeah, and he doesn't know shit about the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah. The one thing I think we didn't talk about, Bruce, we're going to talk about Jerry. Now, the thing, Jerry was so mystical, his lyrics, the way he sang, everything about Jerry was magical. He had moments on stage that were cosmic. People thought he was a prophet. People worshiped him. Everywhere he went, everywhere he did, he was Jerry Garcia. But the mystery lies behind who was Jerry. We're going to get that. But I think who he was the guy on stage, and he didn't know who he was off the stage. You know, like, he didn't want to be responsible for this whole cultural thing. He just wanted everybody to have fun. I want to play maybe one more song.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a little mystical. It's Jerry. The song's called Morning Dew. Let's play a little bit of it.
Yeah, sure.
thought I heard a
It's a shame we can't play the whole song. I mean, it's long, you know.
Yeah, it's like 12 minutes long.
It's really slow. But hey, kitty cat. It's really slow. But he says at the end of it, which it just doesn't matter anyway. And that's the last lyrics he says in that song. And how right is it at the end of it? It just doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples that Mystic Jerry songs, you know, Morning Dew is just a prime example. There's plenty of other Jerry Mystical songs out there. You just have to look for them.
And Jerry also too, like, I mean, Beyond the Dead, he did so much other stuff, man. Like all these, the Jerry Garcia band, a lot of that stuff was great.
Very famous recordings with Jerry Garcia band.
The David Grissom stuff, the kids albums.
I love that. All the bluegrass albums he did with him. Yeah. There's a documentary called Grateful Dog, and it's about the last sessions of Jerry and what's his name? David
Grissom.
Yeah, their last sessions as bluegrass players. But it's really good. Grateful Dog, DAWG.
I'll have to check it out. The stuff he did, like a whole bunch of those albums with Merle Saunders, the jazz musician, and I love that stuff. It's just really cool.
Yeah. But that's how introverted he was. He could go out and play rock and roll and then just play this fucking thing that only Jerry can do playing with another band.
All good stuff, man. Really, really cool.
I love the Grateful Dead. It's a way of life. It really saved my life, bro. It saved my life.
I think you did him well tonight talking about him. So,
hey, man, I've been waiting to put this show on for 2 years.
Oh, I know. It's been on the list for quite a while. So
now I
got around to do it.
Now I got to get you to do a fish episode.
Yeah, I still have that book you lent me. I had to read that still. It's on my bookshelf behind me.
Oh no, there's no rush on the book. I'd just rather you listen to the music.
Yeah, I haven't listened to them very much since we were working together in the music store and the Double Line album came out. You played it all the time. But
I was just telling that story at the Fish concert the other night. How me and that dude worked at the record store and we both love Fish. So he would put the first album in and I put the second album in. And every fucking song would come on would be Fish. And the customers were like, what the fuck is this? Turn it off. Turn it off.
Yep. I remember.
I was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Music news, man. I only got one story, and that's around the Pantera reunion. So Pantera announced that they're getting back together. Well, it's Phil and the other dude,
Rex,
and they're gonna be playing with Charlie
Anthrax
from Anthrax, Benante. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name. Benante. I'm sorry, I should have looked that up before. And Zach Wilde from Ozzy's band. So people were like really dunking on like it's a money grab and
yeah, I see that. I see that be the money grab thing. I just don't know how you can call it Pantera without the original Pantera guys.
Yeah, I mean,
or like the most important guys in the band are dead.
Right. Dimebag was such a amazing guitar player, and his brother, the two of them, and also, I mean, the circumstances under which Dimebag died. But I mean, bands also move on with other people, right? Like it was on my Facebook memories like 2 days ago. Like I went and saw Queen with Adam Lambert. I mean, it wasn't called Queen; it was Queen plus Adam Lambert. But still, like bands move on all the time. I think the heavy metal snobs were being a little comic book guy about it. Phil's also an asshole.
Phil is an ass. He's a scumbag. He's a shitbag of the week.
Yeah, he is a shitbag. Hang on, I think I could play that. Shitbag of the week. Dun dun dun. Yeah, he's a bad dude. I don't know if I want to give him my money. Just all his.
No, I'm not going. I'm not going to that reunion show. It's not a reunion show to me. And I love Charlie Benedate, whatever how you say his Italian last name. He is one of my favorite drummers of all time. Will he do Vinnie Paul justice? Absolutely. Absolutely will he do justice. Do I think Zach Wilde gonna give fucking Dimebag justice? No fucking way. As much as you want them to rock, Zach Wilde is not Dimebag. I know they were best friends and they experimented a lot together with pedals and all this shit. And they were brothers in guitar worlds, you know? But I guess I don't know how I feel about it. I don't care. I it just looks at me. I'm like, oh, look what they're doing. Isn't that stupid?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's been 20 years since they toured. I don't know.
I saw them on the Further Power tour, and I don't have to see them again because I saw them do Walk when it first came out.
Right. Yeah, I saw them with White Zombie like a zillion years ago.
Yeah.
Brian Stull, who listens to our show, shared a whole article with us about like Phil and kind of what a scumbag he is, and I don't know, man. I'm on the fence about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Hey, I'm sure they can go out there and grab the money from the people that want to celebrate the Pantera music. You know, they are out there. They will go to the concert. They will support it.
Yep.
You know, just if you're for Pantera, support them.
Yep. Right on.
If not, still pay attention to it.
Yeah. All right. I got some second thoughts. So we got two things on second thoughts. Bib Lola emailed us to our website, said, "Hey, Bruce, Summertime is a cover from a pretty well-known opera," and then sent me the link to George Gershwin. So that was Summertime by Janis Joplin we talked about in the last episode.
Yes.
And I think Doug had asked if it was a cover, and I was like, no, it's a Joplin song, and I was wrong. It's actually based on a George Gershwin song from Porgy and Bess. I can play a little bit of it. I haven't listened to this at all, but a little. I'm just skipping to play like something that sounds like it. This is Lana Del Rey covering it. Oh, your daddy. Okay, I'm not a Gershwin guy. I think I appreciate what he means in music. I don't like musicals. I don't listen to a lot of it.
No,
interesting.
But what we were talking about with Janis Joplin doing it, I think we were more saying how she made it her own instead of like who cares who wrote it. She made it her own. She made it famous in pop culture.
Yeah.
It's just one of those songs. It's great summer song.
I still appreciate. Thanks for writing in and point me in the right direction. I kind of dismissed it. I'm like, no, it was Janis wrote it, and that's whatever. I pulled up on the internet, and I looked it up as we were talking. So, and we got another email from Tim. So he was commenting when I said something about like we should do a Pet Sounds and a Beatles album. So the guy said, "Hey guys, you talked about doing a show on Pet Sounds versus the Beatles album, and you were debating which one. You guys were all sort of right. So Brian Wilson said Pet Sounds was inspired by Rubber Soul. He heard that album and said he had to make one good or better. And then Pet Sounds had an influence on Sgt. Pepper's. When Brian Wilson heard Strawberry Fields, he gave up on recording Smile. By the way, Paul McCartney said God Only Knows is his favorite song in the history of music." So I don't know where that leaves us. We'll do the episode. I don't know which album we do it to.
Pet Sounds to me, I listen to it regularly. It's part of my routine is listen to the Pet Sounds once a week. I don't know why. It's been on my record player for months. And if you never listen to Pet Sounds, you're missing out. And you just think the Beach Boys, the surf music, when they were so much more. There was so much more. Like, they were my number 2 American best rock and roll band.
I agree, man. It's a great album. Even the story around Smile and how that was supposed to be his masterpiece, and like that's an interesting story too. But we'll get around to talking about them for sure. So.
You ever see that movie Love and Mercy?
I did not.
It's about John Cusack plays Brian Wilson, and it's about Brian Wilson's later life, like how he was brainwashed by the psychiatrist, and how he was just locked away in his room. John Cusack plays him great. Plays a great scene. Yeah, I think it's on Amazon, or I believe it's on Netflix.
All right, cool. I'll check it out. The electric chair. So the electric chair is a segment where we kill a song for being terrible. I got one.
Yes.
I was away at Boy Scout camp last week in the woods with a bunch of teenagers. I'm a scoutmaster of my kids' Boy Scout troop, and we went whitewater rafting. And as we were whitewater rafting, the kids, one of the little kids in front of us in the raft stood up in the front of the raft and did the Titanic pose with the arms out.
Oh, God.
And I had this moment. I was like, oh, that shitty song from Titanic. We haven't killed that yet.
God.
I mean, and this song, dude, was everywhere.
Dude, do you remember the version they put out with the dialogue from the movie that was pasted into it?
Yes.
It was like I was working somewhere and they start playing. I wanted to kill myself. Like now, the song's bad enough, and now I got to hear Leo DiCaprio. I love you, Rose. Don't ever give up.
We were working in the music store when this came out, and I have somebody sent me that we used to work with sent me the picture of it. Like we did the whole the cash register we did as the boat, and we all dressed the tuxedo place in the mall. They gave us tuxedos, so we're all dressed up like we're the first class passengers in the store. It was out coming out on VHS tape, like '97 or something. But this song, man, was just
dude, it was everywhere. Awful. She's still making money off of it.
She sucks. This song's terrible. All right, let's just kill it. I don't need to hear it again.
We sentence you to death.
Man.
Man. Good. Woo.
Yeah.
There's some smelly flames coming off that one.
So that's it.
Yeah, that was the Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah, that's it for episode 44. So if you are looking to hear some Grateful Dead, man, we got you covered. We put together a playlist with every episode. You can check it out. There's a link in the show notes. You can also go in the show notes for a link to our social media and our website and our email. If you like what you hear, man, we'd love it if you follow us on your favorite podcast platform, or you left us a review, or tell somebody about us. And if you don't want to do that, you can always reach out to us. We love hearing from everybody. We read as many of the comments as we can on the air. We love just keeping the dialogue up. So that's about it, man. We'll be back in 2 weeks with some more insight and entertainment. So thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us through some of the quality issues. We're going to be back sounding a little bit better in 2 weeks.
All right, everybody. Keep on rocking.
Peace out.
I'm just a prisoner.